What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about Lucid. I want to go over some of the current data points, latest and updates, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So Lucid is up 3.61%, 22.43 the low, 23.47 the high. Kind of low volume, so 3.5 million shares being traded, 10.5 is the average, and that's been more of a common occurrence over the last kind of week and a half, but still over the last week, Lucid has done absolutely amazing things. So over the last 5 days, up 12.1%. So pretty good stuff. Today, no news from them, no SEC filings. So one big thing that's really driving Lucid higher is just piggybacking off of the broader market and its own technicals. So I'll kind of talk about the technicals and what might be coming next. But today we did have some data. S&P Global Composite Manufacturing and Services. So Composite came in at 53.6, forecast at 54.1, so a little bit lower. Manufacturing came in flat at 52, and services came in a little bit better than forecast, so 53.9 versus 53. So somewhat mixed overall, all above 50 though, so that still goes to show that there's a certain level of expansion. Richmond data though, which is more fine-tuned, so a smaller amount of participants, did come in at -17 versus a forecast of -10. So that goes to show a little bit less growth than what was originally anticipated, but nonetheless, pretty good stuff, I think, overall. And because of this data, you do see this now ticking up a little bit. So now there's a 91.9% likelihood of a 25 basis point cut, which in my opinion, has not been priced into the market. Probably once we get into kind of the first week of October, then the market might actually take this seriously and start to price it in. So that could give the market a nice additional push higher, even though the markets are at pretty much record highs as of today. We also have Powell coming out at 11:35, so that could cause a certain level of volatility. But in my opinion, I think the market is hell bent on just keep on going higher. One thing to take note of though is with everything at like all-time highs, big money is going to be looking for kind of discounted and distressed stocks such as Lucid. So even though it's gained some pretty good traction recently, you might see it really aggressively go higher. And again, once I go over the technicals, things will look pretty a-okay. But one thing did come out, and that was this right here. So latest Flyover, we see a lot of gravities, so pretty good stuff for that. And yeah, I think based on what he mentioned at the very beginning, there was roughly about 12 or 13 car haulers, so the most that he's ever seen. So in general, Lucid's really kicking ass trying to get out as many vehicles to get the delivery numbers up for Q3, because we only have roughly around a week and a half left in Q3. So that should make for Q3 numbers pretty good. And most likely they'll put it out the first week of October. They've been really inching it up closer and closer, because historically I think they've done it like third week of October. And then I think just last quarter they moved it up quite considerably. So I think they're aligning it a little bit more with Rivian and Tesla's unveiling and their numbers. So at the end of the day, I think Lucid's Q3 numbers should be pretty solid in my opinion. Aside from the latest Flyover, you are seeing shorts roughly kind of now increase about 82,000 shares. So they're not doing too much. 31.01% of the free float's being shorted, works out to be 38.87 million shares overall are being shorted. So I've already talked quite extensively in previous videos about shorts and why I do feel over the next little bit they will be returning. So that's kind of a fairly positive thing. And then one general reason why they're not really doubling down or doing anything is because there's not that much in available shares. So there's only about 9,000 shares at the time of doing this video available. So this is why shorts aren't doubling down. And even despite us having somewhat lower volume, like they can't really do anything. So yeah, it's kind of interesting, a very unique circumstance. So that could result in, of course, Lucid stock price continuing to appreciate and then putting shorts in a very difficult scenario. At the time of doing this video, the Elliott Wave Technicals is projecting for Lucid to be above or roughly around that 27.01, so between 25.49 and 27.01, at least in the short term. Reason why it is showing this is because of this right over here. So at the time of doing this video, Lucid is kind of flirting with that looks like 100-day moving average, but it is officially above the 50-day moving average. So we already know exactly what that means. Historically, like a 30% swing. So that's pretty solid. Of course, in order for that to come to fruition, it needs to stay above there for 2 consecutive days. So tomorrow's going to be a very big day for Lucid. So that 50-day moving average is sitting at 2262. So that's going to be a pretty big deal overall. And then, yeah, if essentially things go according to plan, then this is where you can see things really move higher, because even looking at the market position, you don't see that much willing sellers. So if Lucid has something in their back pocket, then you could see things really rocket like crazy. And it doesn't have to be operational. It could just be simply some insider actually just buying Lucid with their own money. So transaction code P. I think that in among itself would just skyrocket the stock, because this would be for the first time ever, aside from the PIF, a insider buying Lucid. It would show that they see value at this dollar value at 23.23 or 23.24 now. So at the end of the day, that could be a pretty good thing that does come out, but they would have to do it within the next week, because as soon as Q3 does conclude, there is a blackout, so they can't really do any transactions unless it's scheduled ahead of time, and it'd be too late to kind of do that now. Algos, you can kind of see, are very much active today based on the smaller transactions right over there. So that's where most of the volume is coming from, because if we look at both the secondary market and dark pool, you're not really seeing that much in crazy transactions. So again, something to keep in mind. Aside from that, these are all the transactions occurring on this secondary market. So somewhat mixed, so some buying, some selling. So again, this is why algos are really propelling Lucid higher, because it's feeding and kind of analyzing Lucid's technicals, which is looking solid. And so this is why it's really pushing things higher. Looking at the options, so you're seeing 833,000 in calls, 99,000 in puts, 52% of all the options being done today are bearish in nature. Coming from a bull standpoint, you see a consensus for it to be roughly between that 23 and 23.50. Oddly enough, there's this outlier for it to be above 25 by the end of this week. I'm not really sure exactly what might be coming out to justify that. So if anyone knows of a catalyst coming out, that let me know your viewpoint on that. But then again, I guess big money always knows something ahead of time, so I wouldn't be surprised if maybe some news does drop or something like that. From a bear standpoint, seems like there is a consensus for it to be kind of sub that, oddly enough, $20, which I don't really see that being on the table unless GDP and PCE really just tear the market across the board and prompt things to go a little bit lower. But right now with it at 23.27, it is trading between this R1 and the pivot. So 21.45 is going to be the next strong support. Very wide gaps because I'm looking at the 1-day chart on the side note. And then 23.42 is going to be the next strong target / resistance point. And so that, in my opinion, is going to be that big deal for today. So if it can actually close above that, then you can see that 24, 26, and based on that LE Wave technicals is kind of projecting for it to be level or even above this R3. So yeah, big things are going to be coming. I think the Flyover is absolutely amazing. If Lucid has something in their back pocket, like I said, that would be even better. But let me know your general thoughts on Lucid. What have you been doing with it? Have you been buying? Have you been selling? What's your kind of general thoughts? And then one final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. I put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades, even yours truly. I put as a buy signal. Initial target was roughly around that 23.50. Second target, I think I put down for 24 something. So definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. And then most likely I'll be giving a update to that in the next week. So definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.